Hello everyone. I figured I would make a little penny update video, and since I've seen a couple mane and tail care routines going around on Instagram, I figured I would do that too. So I'm going to go over a couple products I use in my process and also talk about Penny's update on her stuff. So the first and really only product I use is the Santa Fe spray. I really love it, and I'll talk about its qualities in a little bit here, but I really recommend it. It's a great product. I use this round brush from Oster to get through knots in her mane and tail, and it works really well for me. And I use this black electrical tape to secure my braids instead of bands, and I'll get into that later. And also I have scissors just to cut the tape. So I'll get started by spraying the Santa Fe spray into her tail and just working it through the different layers of her tail. She's a quarter horse, so she has quite a few layers, and so I have to get it worked through enough to make sure that I don't, I'm not ripping out too many hairs when I'm detangling. And after that, I'll start brushing it out and making sure it's nice and detangled before I start braiding. So while I do that, I'll start talking about my update on Penny and our breeding plans for this year. So as many of you know by now, it's looking like Penny's not going to maintain this pregnancy. We found this out by doing a blood test just to check her progesterone levels, and I can't remember the exact measurements of what units, but it's supposed to be 5 somethings per unit of blood to say that it's probably going to maintain the pregnancy, that the pregnancy is probably going to stay. But it's actually, her progesterone levels came back below 1. So it's safe to say that she's not going to maintain this. And as of this past week, she's shown signs of ovulation, and she's been acting like she's going into heat again. So that's a pretty good sign that she's not maintaining this pregnancy. So because of this, it's probably safe to assume that she's already aborted the vesicle and that she's not pregnant anymore. Our vet believes this happened for 2 different reasons. One being it was really early in the season, and sometimes they just don't maintain it that early. We were a little excited to just get her pregnant and hope for the best, so that's on us. But also, she was very stressed out when we were inseminating and also palpating because she's never done these things before. So we had to sedate her a little bit. And we think that the amount of sedative that it took to get her sedated was affecting her stress levels in her system. So it wasn't so much external as it was internal, and her system was a little shocked by that. So she was under a lot of chemical stress, and also it was early in the season, so the baby would have been born in a colder time of the year. So, upon talking to our vet, we've decided that it's probably just better for everyone to wait a little longer, and she's more likely to maintain it if we try again later in the year. So what we're going to do now is we're going to let her go through this cycle naturally to just get her all the chemicals out of her system and just let her sit for a little bit and relax. And then the next time she goes into heat, we're going to time it right rather than just check every other day to see if she's ovulating. So we're just gonna count the days that she's in heat and then count the days that she's out of heat, and then as soon as she's in heat again, we're gonna try to time it right so that we'll inseminate her 1 to 2 days before ovulation or whenever. I'm not really sure. I'll have to talk to my vet more. But the plan is we're just gonna try to do this a little less invasively. I think that's a word. So, it's a bummer, but, we'll get by, and we just got to wait a little longer. And mostly I'm just trying to hold my breath, because I'm mostly just worried that she won't get pregnant or that we'll time it wrong or whatever, And it's fine. We have until July, I believe, or the end. And I think July is the last month that we can order shipments. So, we have time, and if May doesn't work, then we'll try again the next month, but we have time, but I'm a worrywart, and I don't want to wait any longer. I just want it to happen now. But, we'll be okay. And ultimately, it'll just be better for everyone. If she maintained this first pregnancy, the foal would be born in probably around late January. early to late January, sometime in January. And so it would be a lot colder, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't get really cold here anyways, but still, like, I don't really want to be sitting out in the rain at night, on full watch waiting for this thing to hit the ground. I'd much rather be out here in springtime, and, late spring would be ideal. or even mid-spring. I just, not January. So like I said, it's a bit of a bummer, but it'll be fine. We're going to do great. We just got to wait a little longer and be patient. And, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. So I'm just glad that I'm able to have this opportunity. So I'm not going to complain any more than I have to. I'm just grateful. So I'm in the meantime just taking care of Penny, as you can see here, and having a good time, enjoying the experience, or enjoying the downtime while it lasts. Because as soon as this foal gets here, I'm never going to have any free time until this thing is probably about 7 years old. Okay, so anyways, back to the tail care. I'm going to get started braiding her tail now. I like to separate her top hairs, I guess. There's kind of like if you look at the tail, there's kind of like a layer at the very top that doesn't usually grow very long, at least not for her. So I like to separate it and get it up out of the way so that I can braid the rest of it, and I just let that hang because it doesn't drag on the ground and doesn't get really dirty. Plus, it'll prevent the hairs from pulling on the tail if I did braid them. In my experience, horses will try to rub their tails if that happens, so it just prevents that from happening and keeps it all looking much nicer. Alright, so I like to start my braids just below the end of the tail, and I'll make my first two braid plaits, I don't know what they're called, the first two crosses, not too tight because I really just don't want to have them pulling on the roots of the hair, because horses will rub their tails off if they have any pulling, and I tend to be not the best groom, so I just like to give myself a lot of leeway so that I'm not making my horse uncomfortable. And so I just continue down the tail like a normal braid. I don't do anything fancy. I'm not very good at braiding. I've been trying to get better because I don't know, it's like a nice little downtime working on your horse's tail and mane. It gives you some time to just hang out with your horse and, give them a time where you're not making them run their asses off. So it gives them a little time to rest, and also I find it to be soothing, so I like doing it. But that doesn't mean I'm good at it. So I try to braid about as far as I can. Penny's tail is just natural, so it's not clipped at the end, so it's not even. So I'm just braiding as far as I can go until it doesn't make sense to braid any further. And then I'll grab my black electrical tape and I will do my best to secure the end of that braid. Whenever I can, I try to use black electrical tape or just electrical tape of any kind, really, instead of rubber bands, because it tends to stay put better, and it also doesn't cut off the hairs, because eventually at some point, if you're really keeping your tail or your braid secured, your rubber bands are going to start like pinching off the hairs, and it'll start breaking and damaging them. So sometimes I have arguments with my tape, and especially when I'm doing mane braids, because it's a lot smaller than the tail. So sometimes I give up and I just use them anyways. But I do my best to use tape as much as I can. Keep in mind, I'm using electrical tape, and I can't remember why you don't use other tape. I think it's just because it actually stays better. Biomane talks about this a lot. This is where I got this, this tip from. So I can link a video to that somewhere. They talk a lot more about this, and they actually give you reasons why. So now that my braid is secured, I'm going to take that top layer that I put tied up in a way earlier, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to brush it out a little bit so that it's not so messed up. And I just leave it there. I just let it hang there. I know some people like to braid that part too. I guess you can like braid it separately, but I just don't like the way it looks when there's two braids on a tail. It just looks weird to me. So I just leave it there. I don't have a tail bag for her. I've been thinking about getting one just because why not, you know, but I don't know, just haven't gotten around to it. So that's pretty much it. I don't do a whole lot of fancy stuff. When I am showing, I mean, I've never shown Penny, but when I am, I just braid them and then take the braid out the day of the show because I like how wavy their hair is. But I do the same thing for the mane, you know, I just spray it, brush it, and braid it. Nothing fancy, but it gets the job done and they look nice. But yeah, that's all I got. I figured this would be a nice little chill video to record, and it was fun for me because I just like doing stuff like this. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we will have better news in May.